I've made major enhancements to Platform Master's traffic. First, I want to explain why. Do note that I recorded this before I made the changes to this world. Note this truck here. There is nothing in the way of lighting, and there's very minimal detail. Not only that, but there's also less variety, and the traffic doesn't really go out all the way. Like here it stops, there's traffic there, but there's no traffic out here and beyond. And this is what the new traffic looks like. World 11, maglev train, happens to have the greatest variety of all the vehicles, so I will use this one to show you. Note the huge amount of variation in the traffic, not to mention the huge speed everything's going by. Just for reference, I will be using only this lane right here, the closest for which all the traffic will ever get to the camera and all of Platform Master's. This lane right here is what I will be focusing on. Feel free to look at the other stuff in the background, but I will only be focusing on the one in the foreground here. But if you notice here, the cherries, the red here and the blue over there, and highway patrol, you can tell that this is a cop car. Note that there's lighting on here too, when I didn't have that before, as you just saw, and one of the main reasons I wanted to do it. Also note the shadows here from the being cast from these rails from the trains. Now, you're probably familiar with the hydrogen car, after all knowing these right here that the train is part of. But I've also made plenty of updates, like this is now red, the resolution's finer and updated a bit more too, here and there. And of course I've really enhanced the shadowing on here too. These are basically your semis. Basically in this case the hydrogen tank is being hauled by a semi, as opposed to the train here, but it's still the same idea. It's getting from point A to point B. This is what I used to call the minivan, but is now instead what I call the sedan. And what was the sedan is now something else, but I'll be covering that in a little bit. Pretty basic design overall. And one of the most detailed of them all is the Platform Master semi. This is Berrugan Reef, in case you're wondering. It's got a platform level scattered around all in the background of it. Start platform here, goal platform over here. And as you're probably familiar with Platform Masters, you got to get to this from the start platform to the goal platform before this runs to 0. And this gets to a faint little red sliver, basically. I love that feature. But there's a lot more to it than you probably might realize. I have the word best in red here. I don't know if you can see that, but if you really zoom in you can see that. Or just look at my screenshots and other stuff that show the detail. But the B is breathtaking views. E, explore the world. S, strengthen yourself. T, thrilling adventure. Champ begins July 20. You probably remember that from those sailboats, right? So, that's basically all there is to that one. Here's a regular cop car for a particular city. Note the use of Des Lille. That's actually one of the cities that you'll find along the Ryanara Passage that you'll encounter when riding the train. Of course, it's quite a bit of forest stuff that I still need trees for at the moment. I'll cover that in the 5-year anniversary video when I get that posted very soon. And this, in case you're wondering, just says 911 after the emergency number in the US that I'm familiar with. School bus. Note the use of Sidus on here. Yeah, that's another city. You remember those platforms in Sentis Mountains that you see pretty much first thing that head off way off into the background? Those platforms lead straight to Sidus, in case you're wondering on what that was all about. Yep, there you'll see all kinds of details regarding this. But this is what the school bus looks like. Kind of an overall basic design, but as you can tell, it's not boxy up in the front here either. That's because there is some focus on the aerodynamics. This is what I used to call the sedan, but is now the compact, because it's one of the smallest vehicles in all of the traffic. It's pretty basic overall, and notice that it's also a lot lower to the ground. They may be cramped, but they're a lot cheaper than anything other method. Here's a fire truck. Note the use of Musan Fire Department, or fire depth if you will. This is just basically the fire truck. This is where the access panel is, where you find the hose and all that other stuff. Here's a ladder needed for rescue, and of course your colored cherries, the orange ones in this case. Fire and rescue, in case you're wondering what that is. It's a fairly simple design, and I'm not really after too much complexity. The other vehicle that's visible here is the ambulance. Plus, after the usual health thing that's often associated with that, and 911 after the emergency number like before. Nothing really special there. And of course, if you look closely enough, you can see the little yellow cherry. See? Well, actually orange. Office 101. Basic office supplies, low prices. And I like the way this one actually came out. Here's a piece of paper, a common office item. Scotch tape, another common office item. Paper clips, more common office items. Staples, more common office items. And a desk. I don't really think that belongs too well, but yeah, it is a common office item, but you won't find it in the store. Here's a tow truck. If you look closely here, it's got this part here that sticks out, which goes in deeper inside of here, and the wrench and all that other stuff, or whatever it's called, is hidden inside of here where you can't really see that. And there's actually a little hook coming down right around here that hooks around the back of a car, which hooks to about right here, kind of halfway between here and the end of the bumper there. In case you're wondering, that says Mandar's Tow. There's also one for Richard and Samantha. You'll see those in other worlds, though. This is a new vehicle that you haven't seen before, and it's a common one, the motorcycle. Here you can see the rider. Note the size of Jeremy here at 1 SU. This is 1 1/8 SU, so it's a little bit smaller. SU means scaling units. This fence here is 2 scaling units, so it's about twice as far out as he is, or basically about 200 feet. This is 100 feet. This is about 112.5, slightly more in all cases. But this one, you kind of get the basic idea on the motorcycles and how they look. Hardware Mart is basically kind of an advertisement-focused truck. There's 4 different kinds of things on here, all involving flooring, because that's what the theme is basically revolved around. Because after all, when you're dealing with hardware type stores, you end up with flooring, plumbing, lighting, and all that other kind of stuff. So, in this case, you can get linoleum for, I'm not sure exactly what that says, but it's basically Igani, and I think that's $17.95 Igani per square block. Remember, 1 block is the width of this right here. The thickness right here is 1 block, or 32 coordinate units, which is about 4.69 feet, or about 1.43 meters, if I remember my numbers. Or you can get wood replica. Replica? What is that all about? Well, in the year 2073 that Platform Masters takes place in, trees aren't really used much anymore, because in the future there's a replica of it that provides almost similar properties, but is artificial, safe, and also fairly cheap. And of course it's about $21.97 Igani per square block. Kind of basic overall. Or you can get just plain regular glass tile, starting at $9.96 Igani per square block. And of course, it looks expensive, but concrete is actually pretty cheap in this case. It's $13,995 Igani per cubic block. Yeah, cubic. Take one of these, go out this way, out that way, and then out into the Z distance as well. That's an awful lot of concrete when you think about it, and then some a lot. Another one of these compacts, nothing new there, just a different color. Sentis Bus Depot. Basically, you know what these objects here are, right? You know, the famous mountains that make up the Sentis region? Well, that's basically what it is. Kind of a basic design, based on the school bus with them basic minor design differences. Really nothing special there. This is a black sedan here. Looks like the windows are a little strange looking there. One of my favorites is Galactic Groceries. After all, you can see a galaxy here, and if you look really closely, you can see another one there. Scattered throughout the design are a whole bunch of stars. I wanted this one to be quite visible and also have some little bit of extra creativity in there for the text, but it kind of gives you the idea. This is a truck. Note the rather long bed in the back for hauling things around. Overall, it's pretty much a fairly simple design. It's like the tow truck, only the bed's longer. They're mainly meant for families hauling stuff around. Comfort Furniture Store. This one offers comfortable, high-quality furniture, guaranteed, and at a wide range of prices. You can get a fancy new sofa for 109,700 Igani, which is really expensive when you think about it. It's actually a little over 2,000 bucks, US dollars. Just take the Igani value and divide by 50 to get the US dollar equivalent. Or you can get a bed, king size if you note the asterisk there, for 23,699 Igani, which isn't really all that bad compared to normal beds, but you also have to note the storage available here too. Or you can get a basic medium quality desk for 82.99 Igani. And of course, if you really want something cheap, here's something on the cheap end. A basic simple table for 21.49 Igani. Basically, the Comfort Furniture Store semi is just a billboard in a sense. Electronics Island, the technology enthusiast's paradise. This is basically themed after some of the ground decals I've done, taking after all the rich detail that you've probably seen in many other worlds, like Lake Kevern, for example, where the shore is. But here you can see appliances, cameras and camcorders, TVs, music and video, computers. Just each island represents one kind of theme, basically, in a sense. It's just a little creativity I came up with for that design. Here's another one of these sedans. Another motorcycle. Another sedan. Quincy's is a department store since 2028. Yeah, that's already well into the future, but this is way into the past compared to Platform Masters anyway. Note that this is 45 years ago in Platform Masters world. So yeah, 45 years at it. And of course, the basic design, I couldn't really think of anything, so I just thought of a typical random layout of a basic department store, because that's what Quincy's actually is. I also wanted something that started with a capital Q and is also narrow, so I can make it super big. That's what my intentions were. Auto, makeup, where you get all your girly stuff, hair dye and stuff like that too. Garden, let's see. There's house stuff, where you get your kitchen type stuff. Office stuff, like your pencils and paper and stuff. Artwork stuff, like paints for example. Electronics, you're probably familiar with that, only it's less availability compared to Electronics Island anyway. Jewelry, you know how those sections are. Lots of gold rings and silver necklaces and all that kind of stuff. Women's clothes, kids' clothes, men's clothes, whole grocery section over here. And don't forget your famous checkouts. Can't go without those, you know. Clothesland is kind of a basic one, because they couldn't really think of anything drastic or significant, but hey, I want them a variety between complexity and simplicity as well, so it kind of makes sense in a way. All seasons, giant selection. Shirts, represented by t-shirts. Pants and jeans, represented by pants. shorts and swimwear, represented by shorts, accessories, represented by a headband, shoes and sandals, represented by a shoe, hats, represented by a ski cap, panties and underwear, represented by underwear. That's basically what that really is. Another motorcycle. And another motorcycle. And there's a sedan. OSA police. Yeah, OSA. You're basically from Carnivalesta to where World 11 takes place. You're pretty much already past OSA. You're passing OSA along that route. Another motorcycle. Another truck. Yeah, that's pretty much all the vehicles. It's pretty amazing looking at all this stuff going by here, isn't it? So many different cars, and even this is only 57 out of the 67 unique varieties. And yes, note the train zipping by in the background there, going really, really crazy fast. It's because everything's going by at 192 miles an hour. Of course, this isn't the only world with this kind of traffic either. Jeremy's house has quite a few updates to it as well. At first it don't seem like it, but if you look closely enough, you can see a fair number of details that are different as well. Out in the distance, yeah, you can see the same trucks and stuff going by, but there weren't motorcycles here before, and this certainly wasn't there before either. And not to mention the compact and a lot of other kinds of cars that you'll find along the way. Another motorcycle. Yeah, let's see, where are you at? Yep, West Ranisa Schools. There's a school bus for you. Yeah, I'm just scanning along, seeing what there is, and this is what I really wanted to show you. This is the city bus. Ranis City Bus. Note the creative design here. Basically skyscrapers for the city part of it, and the shape of a bus with streaks behind it for speed, and wheels beneath it for your basic bus look overall. I like the way that came out. And that's pretty much all the main stuff there is. Yeah, there was a cop car there, and there's an ambulance there. Gotta love those emergency vehicles. They're always handy to have. Ranisa Plains isn't all that different, except for the fact that I've now added in a whole lot of other details. What happened to Ranis, you're probably wondering. Well, Ranis has an assortment of limitations that are technical limitations that kind of limit it. But overall, here you can see one of the trains zipping by in the background, because this is a new addition, along with all the cars out here are kind of new as well, using the same designs. Motorcycles less common thanks to the rain. But you kind of get the basic idea overall. There's another train coming from the other direction too. Not exactly sure where that's at, but sometimes they can be really far spaced apart. But you get the basic idea at least. Keverin Desert is also fairly well in detail as well. Of course, I gotta wait for this bouncing and stuff to stop. But here, remember how big those school buses were, right? Well, that's a school bus right there. You practically almost can't even see it. And that's still not even the farthest visible traffic in all of Platform Masters. But also, notice that the traffic seems a lot lighter than what it used to be. That's because this is quite an isolated area. This is that Hardware Mart semi. Noticing how slowly it moves. Lake Keverin has a few adjustments to it as well. Of course, as I go up, you can start seeing some of the traffic coming into the view. Look closely here and you can start seeing plenty of traffic. Not just the air taxis, but there's actually cars here now. These are very far into the background. And when I mean very far, I'm not joking. And for some reason, this does not seem to be moving. Seems like I found a bug. Fixing. And let's try that again. That traffic, yep, I can see that it's now moving. What happened? Well, I simply forgot to set the speed. I had it set to the default of 0 because, well, who's ever heard of hills like this moving? And if you probably noticed, the frame rate's also different for some strange reason. It's a problem I've had with Windows 7 ever since I got it. But as you can tell, you can see plenty of cars zipping by. You remember Keverin Forest, right? Well, here's more detail for this world. It's sure getting a lot more attention now, isn't it? And of course, there's also plenty of other details to consider as well, not to mention the power lines and the shadows that they cast too as well. And you got your normal train car rails for those high-speed maglev trains, not to mention a host of cars going by, like your comfort furniture store ones here. There's a cop car there, there's your clothesline one, another furniture store, platform masters. Just look at the size of that tiny little motorcycle. Look at the size of that. Now look at him. Quite the size difference, isn't it? Yeah, isn't it fun just watching all these cars going by? Don't want to get crushed by that. Of course, I don't have that functionality in at the moment. However, there's that train going by. All kinds of distances these trains have. And some are pretty long and others are pretty short. It just all depends. Carnivalesta also has plenty of details present too. Of course, you're probably noticing the traffic in there and how that it's, well, a little different looking than what it used to be. After all, their lights are a lot darker. You can still see them pretty well, and they're moving pretty much about the same speed. But there's also power lines in there, and I've also standardized the road because I had an error in there that I didn't realize. And of course, if I wait long enough, you'll see trains going by, like right there. There's a train. It's another one of those maglev freight trains. They're just so common. Here's just a different view of it, so you can kind of see how different height the trains are. You can see that the trains are clearly well above that of the traffic. It's amazing all the detail they put into these worlds, isn't it? The Sentis Mountains doesn't really have anything different aside from just the trains. I'll skip ahead until the train actually comes because I have to wait for the clouds to clear first. And I think I see the train right barely here. I'm going to drop down so I can see that more clearly, or a little more clearly anyway. Yep, there it is. There's your maglev freight train here. There's another one as well coming from the other direction that I didn't have before, however. But here's a nice clear view of the train. Yeah, you remember how big those trains were, right? Especially from World 1. Look how slow that's moving now. And this is only halfway out to the distance of just these, let alone the farthest mountains in the background out there. And ain't it fun just getting such ridiculous speeds and falls? Even Musan Swamp has some new details that weren't present before. What's new now? Well, of course I did overshoot it. You probably might have seen it before, but you could see the rails and even a road out there. Of course, at the moment, it's not the ground decals version of the road. After all, it's intended to be kind of basic and limited. And, of course, there's a train. All kinds of different distances these objects all have. Wow, that's a short one. What's going on there? Musan Taiga is just that. It's very remote. There's no big cities anywhere nearby except Musiana, far to the south. That's that other city that I kind of forgot to cover. And speaking of forgetting, there's one other thing that I forgot. And if you look out here, you can see the cop car with the flashing light. I took out that platform, so I can't really use that too well. But yeah, you can see that cop car pulled over a sedan because it broke down. You remember that from last time, right? Yep, same thing. Oh well, this video was created by Ulillillia. Thank you for watching. And stay tuned for the 5-year anniversary of Platform Masters. The video will be posted on, can you guess? April 21, 2014 at 9:23 a.m. Or at least as close to that as possible.